Hey there everyone and welcome to episode 5 of the Night Build series. In this video we're going to go through the 3 skills, dual wield, angelic form, and sever. Now the first skill of these is dual wield, which technically isn't a skill. If you look at here in this in the hotbar, trying to equip it, it doesn't exist. So what this does is it's more just unlocking the ability to use a second sword. Now that is more specifically the equipment sword you can equip instead of a shield. So first of all, I'm going to try and go through a couple of details here. Basically, this is a very, very out-of-date system. When the game originally came out, when it was developed in to be the way it kind of is now, but hadn't been progressed further, all you really had was equipment giving you stats. And in fact, all these other ones, you can see there's like damage on every item now, but originally you didn't get a damage bonus from anything other than your weapon. So, being able to switch your shield out for a second weapon, what this did was it really made the knight very offensive as opposed to defensive. And so it was quite a significant choice to have either the shield or the sword. Now, a lot of knights back in the day, they really enjoyed having the second sword for the extra damage output because, as you can see by this sword here, the stats it gave you were that extra damage, extra crit rating, extra crit damage, and also extra attack speed. Now, back in the day when we didn't have when stats were like crit rating was literally crit percentage, and we were all below 100% crit rating, crit chance. Having extra crit chance was excellent, and extra crit damage. You know, it was really got knight doing a lot more damage by having a second sword. So because of these old days, a lot of the old timers and just generally in the community, it's well known that it's good to have a second sword. You know, it's just the way to play knight. Now, I would actually go against this. So in the description below, you'll see a video, a link to a video which I made where I went through a lot of details about how this works and how I think it's actually better to have a shield these days because the stats you gain from a shield are better than the stats you gain from a sword, and the significance of stuff is just not really significant nowadays. So yes, that's what I'd recommend. I'd recommend actually using a shield rather than a sword. Now the other thing I want to mention here is the increasing attack damage by 25% of your offhand weapon. That is not really very obvious what that is. So if you look at the sword here, this is my lovely Sword of 1,000 Truths. It gives 1 million damage as a stat boost. That stat boost is gained as normal when you have it equipped. So if you look at the shield as well, it's got the base armor, then it's got the stats that it gives. Those stats always gain in full. The base armor is gained in full on a shield. When I equip a second sword, I do not gain that base damage in full, so that 428 damage is not added onto my character. What dual wielding does is it adds a percentage of that amount, so the 25% that I gain because I got this skill at 10 is actually 25% of that 428, so I would gain 107 damage, and the rest of that 428 damage is not added to my character. Like I was saying before, this was a really significant thing because weapons were where you got your damage, and that base damage of a weapon was so much of your damage output on the class that getting 25% of an extra weapon was actually a significant boost to your damage. And, you know, it's a really out-of-date thing that just doesn't really scale properly today. So, in fact, the amount of skill points you have in this, if you put up to 99, it goes to 37.5%. It's such a small damage bonus to your character that it just really doesn't matter. In fact, you can go with just one skill point in this, and it's pretty much just as good. What this skill is really doing is just unlocking the ability to equip a second sword. So what does that really do for you? Well, like I said, having a shield in there is actually better. I prefer the stats. But, you know, if you want a second sword for the stats on the sword, then, you know, go ahead and do it. I'm not going to talk against it too much. What this is really going to do is it's going to unlock the screwing effects. So there are various screwing effects which you get. You know, obviously you can only select one, you equip that one, you dual wield, and then you have this extra effect. What they all do is they boost onto your basic attacks. So the more recent ones, at the time I'm making this video, they add on extra elemental damage onto every single basic attack you do, and then there's a chance of doing a burst of elemental damage. So that's pretty useful. It's like a straight up damage buff to any basic attacks you do. It's just going to improve the way things work. The thing is it really worth equipping a second sword for this? I wouldn't want to do that. What I recommend instead is instead flipping a sword in and out. So you can start a map with a second sword equipped, or you can start a map with a shield equipped, and then basically swap it in and out so that you end up with a shield equipped. And if you look in the top left, you still have the dual wield bonus. Now this bonus is basically saying your skill rune is active, so nature wield is currently active. Now I'm not going to show with nature wield because that actually won't show it properly. Instead I'll do it with empowered twin smite, just because it's a little more obvious to see what's going on. So I'm going to swap this in and out, activate empowered twin smite, and now I'm going to go attack some enemies. So this has a chance to bring down this giant sword from the sky, and it's going to explode on the enemies. So you'll see this happening now, even though I'm not using a second sword, because I swapped the sword in and out in this map until I die, it's going to be working. Now, don't feel like you have to do this. You can just use a second sword. I'm just showing that this is a way how you can still do it, even without, while still using a shield. Because I do like, there we go, there was the sword there. Because I do like these skill rune effects. I think they're really quite strong, some of them. If you say you have a nature build and then you use this nature wield, it's very useful having this buff to your basic attacks. There are a few basic attack buffs on the class around the place, and if you stack them all together, then your basic attacks can become quite decent. Speaking of which, I'll mention them now. There's skill runes on Protector, have various things with basic attacks. You also have skill runes on Frenzy, and otherwise Frenzy increases your attack rate, so that can, they can come together to do some quite good stuff with your basic attacks. Personally, I like to use skills for damage output. I think that's more optimum on the class, but you can definitely do stuff with this. So anyway, that's everything about dual wield. I hope I've been simple enough and kind of explained what's going on. You only really need to put 1 point in. You can put 10 points in. I've got 10 points here just because. Let's move on. So the next skill to talk about is angelic form. Now this is the base skill in the class that is just the ridiculous, powerful, it was the final skill in the class, and it was just made to be, make yourself indestructible for the next few seconds. So it's a really cool skill. I don't know a single knight in the game who doesn't love this skill. You can see it here when I use it. It turns you into this awesome angelic form where you take no damage. You don't take no damage. You get 90% damage reduction. 90% damage reduction is so nuts that, stack in any other damage reduction and you become invincible. Basically, this just makes you impossible to kill for the next few seconds. That's what it does. It only lasts 7 seconds and it has a 60-second cooldown. Now, I want to mention here, in the base game, there were, skills to make you tank as a knight, but everyone loved angelic form because you could go into content that was ridiculously tough for your stats, and you could still complete it, because you could do this technique where you do angelic form, you go in, you fight the boss and attack it with all your skills and stuff for a few seconds, and then you just run around while it's off, and you keep running. You can throw in some hurl and keep running around. You wait until angelic form's off, and then back on, and then you put it on, you go in and you fight the boss again. And quite a lot of knights did this technique to take out our bosses. Nowadays we try and do things really quickly, and people don't like to do this, but it was definitely a technique back in the day, and this skill is definitely exceptionally powerful. So yeah, to talk about the skill runes don't really do much because it's so powerful anyway. However, Lord of Winter gives your character a lovely water boost. That's the most popular one, and I would definitely say the one to use. However, later skill runes may do other things that's powerful, so do take a look at them. But ultimately, you're going to be using this for defense. In PvP, it's great if you're engaging in some combat. Maybe you're approaching a gap in your defenses, and you want to continue tanking, or otherwise just you want to become invincible for the next few seconds. It also makes you immune to stun and knockback, which is a huge issue for knights in PvE as well. Getting knocked back by things can be a big problem, and so making you immune to that, and in PvP obviously being immune to stun is a huge thing. So it really buffs your character for the next few seconds. The lifesteal benefit here is fine. It's good for recovering your health, but it's not a huge deal. It's just a kind of helpful way to recover your health. Putting more points in this. Now, at 10 points, it functions incredibly well. It gives you 90% damage reduction. In PvP, it gives you 75% damage reduction, just to make it slightly less broken, but you're pretty much invincible when you use it. And then putting up to 99 points, it increases the duration from 7 seconds to 10 seconds. It may not seem like a huge deal, considering the fact that the mana cost goes up to 360. However, I would say it is a huge deal, because it's almost a 50% duration increase, which, considering how strong it is for those few seconds while it's on, it's very useful being able to extend it. And if you do have the skill points, if you do have the mana to be able to use it like that, I would highly recommend getting it to 99 points. It turns it into an even better skill. And there's not really a whole lot more to say about this. I've talked a little bit about its uses and how you use it, and how the old technique of this skill. You'll see almost every knight use this skill. It's very, very good to have on the class. The last skill to talk about is Sever. Now this, like all advanced skills, you need to have 99 points in it to use it effectively. It brings the cooldown down, it puts the damage up, it just makes it work. If you don't have 99 points in it, it's just not really going to be working properly. The damage from it is incredibly high, and considering that the cooldown is only 10 seconds, it's definitely a usable skill. Now I'm going to show you here what it does. It does a little almost cleave-like spin, and well, it does mirror cleave quite a bit. The problem with mirroring cleave is that when you compare it to cleave, cleave is a lot better. The main reason is that cleave has only 2-second cooldown, whereas this has 10 seconds cooldown. But when you think about combining it with all your different skills and how you're going to be balancing defense skills, you're going to be using other damage skills, you're going to be using buffs and that kind of stuff, 10-second cooldown isn't the worst thing in the world. However, I do think this does need some good skilling in it for it to really be a skill that you're going to be using. The movement speed buff for 3 seconds is not exceptionally useful. It kind of helps you be able to track the target, because let's say you're fighting one of these kind of enemies. Now this enemy will die if I attack it. It's going to summon things, it's going to run away from me if I get near to it. So I need to be able to sort of chase after it while attacking, and having a little bit of move speed is going to help me keep on the target. It also helps in, PvP and all that kind of stuff. When the enemy is trying to move away from you, you can still stay on them. But 15% is not a huge deal. So yeah, this is basically a damage skill more than anything else. It's a second cleave, and because cleave has such a low cooldown, it's hard to see where you kind of bring this in. So I would say, for now, I'm kind of staying hopeful that they will make screw-ins for this that will give it its kind of own unique use. But otherwise, you can put it right next to cleave on your skill bar, and then be spamming the two of them to do a lot of damage at close range. Personally, what I like to do there is I like to have cleave and hurl, and I'll spam the two of them, kind of alternating or whatever, to do lots of damage to close range in an area. But sever is definitely one that can be brought in as an alternative to do that kind of thing. And with screw-ins it could be exceptionally powerful. I just don't know yet, because they haven't done much with screw-ins for sever yet. So anyway, that's these 3 skills. We talked about dual wield and the complications there, and how it's most of all just giving you the option to use a shield or a sword in your offhand for the sort of stat bonuses they give. And if you are using a sword, or if you're swapping the sword in and out when you enter a map, then you can get some buffs to your basic attacks in the form of screw-ins. Angelic form is your ultimate defense that has a long cooldown and a short duration. However, you can use it to fill gaps, or otherwise just to massively tank up for a short time to fight a boss. And the immunity to stun and knockback is incredibly useful for being able to battle it out during those seconds. And then we have sever, which is basically a second cleave. There's not a whole lot going on here, but maybe with extra screw-ins it might become a bit more unique, and there's a lot going on there. So anyway, that's these 3 videos. I hope you enjoyed this video. These 3 videos. That's those 3 skills. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.